Welcome, everybody. My name is Joseph, and welcome to another episode of Chocolate Travels. I'm here with Jenny from Nordic Chocolate, based in Sweden. So
hello.
Hi there. So we're going to learn all about how Jenny got started and the work that she's doing. So Jenny, when did you discover bean to bar craft chocolate? How did that happen?
That was actually a very long time ago. Back in 1992.
Oh, wow.
And now it sounds like I'm really old. Yeah, I was just 14, and my whole life I've been obsessed with cacao and with the flavor of chocolate. When I was 14, I was forcing my parents to go to a chocolate factory in the UK, because there wasn't any chocolate factory near in Sweden, and there was no bean to bar at all. And actually I went alone to that place, only 14. And I got to learn about how to make bonbons and chocolates, but not how to make chocolate. And
Right.
They were buying that. It's a huge chocolate factory, and I came back to them many times. And I kept asking, who's making this magic chocolate? Where does it come from? You suddenly just have like pallets of chocolate,
Right.
but who's making them? Yeah,
That's a good question. Not a lot of people ask that question. Even in the food industry, chefs work with the chocolate, but they never ask, hey, who made this? Yeah.
Yeah, and especially not 14-year-old. Yeah. So I wanted to understand who's making all this chocolate. So I went to different chocolate factories around in France and the UK. And so I discovered that there is very few factories actually making the chocolate, but the term bean to bar wasn't invented. Right. Yeah. So I didn't know what to ask for. And we had a chocolate store in Umeå that had really good chocolate. And I said, I want to know who's making the chocolate. I want to buy chocolate where the actual label, I want them to make the chocolate, but I couldn't explain what I was looking for. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I started off just very angry at the chocolate industry.
And so who do you remember? Do you want to say which brands that you came across? Was it in France, or where was it?
Then it's of course Valrhona, Michel Clisel, Pralu.
Right. Yeah.
Those are the brands that like, oh, I'm home. This is what I'm looking for.
Oh, that's interesting, because when I got into chocolate, those are the brands I was familiar with. Back then, it was all the French, Italian sort of bean to bar makers, but still very different than today, to what you do today, right? And to other craft chocolate in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. But then in 2006, I met a French guy, Pierrick Chouard, who were making vintage plantations from Ecuador. So he started a bean to bar, but made in Ecuador, tree to bar, yeah. But at the time, and then later he moved to the US. He moved the production to the US. But I met him in 2006, and he told me that because he was doing a press conference in Sweden about his brand. He was launching the Vintage Plantations brand. And I had so many strange questions about fermentation and species and subspecies in the cacao. So he said, I'm going to work with you when you're older.
Okay.
So I'll see you in a few years' time.
Wow. He's probably wondering who's asking these questions. Nobody asks him these questions.
I know. No, at that time, back in 2006, no one was asking the type of questions that I wanted to know.
Wow.
And then he says, I'll work with you later. And he actually gave me a lot of his time as well when he was in Sweden. And then later he became business partner.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Awesome.
Yes.
Wow,
yes.
That's such an interesting journey. That's really cool.
Yeah. So my bean to bar travel has been like just first being really angry and then finding the right people in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. You know, if people are watching this, some people don't really know too much about craft chocolate. So to kind of link to what you were mentioning earlier, how would you describe the difference then between a chocolatier, melter, and a chocolate maker? What is important for consumers to understand?
Well, it's important to have knowledge. And I mean, if I go to a licorice tasting or tasting bread, I'm always asking for what is the difference between a quality licorice and a candy and a craft bread and something mass produced. So what we're talking about now can be applied to any other type of industry, I think. But when it comes to chocolate, a chocolate maker is producing the chocolate themselves from the bean. And of course, the remelter is buying all those pellets, the callets that I saw. And the difference, the biggest difference is, of course, flavor of the cacao. And some people will say that, but I like the mass produced chocolate. That's the flavor that they enjoy. Fine, then enjoy it. But still, it's still important to have knowledge about quality products.
Right.
Yeah.
And why is it important to have that knowledge? What is that going to do?
It's important because, well, if you are like me, that I want to support craft makers, it's important to understand also the craft industry and to understand who has actually made this bread with their hands and who has made this chocolate actually
and
grinding the beans.
Why is that so important to you?
It's important because I want this world to exist, and if no one buys from them, they're just gonna die. Someone has to buy, and then they have to, in order to buy, they have to be informed about the difference. And of course, it's a huge difference in flavor, but it's really hard to talk about flavor because it's always up to the consumer. So you can't say that craft chocolate will taste better.
Right.
Well, maybe someone don't think so, and they're always right.
And people think that there's a signature flavor of chocolate, but there isn't, right? So you can't, how do you explain all the flavors of all the bars, of all the makers, the craft makers? You can't. They have to try it. They have to experience it.
Yeah. And you can't say that, no, I don't like craft chocolate. Well, you haven't just tried the right one, or I only eat mass-produced chocolate because it has the right price. Well, then you're supporting that industry.
For me, growing up, I didn't really like chocolate, to be honest. I wasn't a huge, if there was desserts, chocolate was always last for me. And especially dark chocolate bars, I just didn't care for them. It wasn't until I was introduced to fine chocolate that I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really good. So there might be some people out there who don't like chocolate because they never had the good stuff. But then I've met a lot of people in my tastings that they thought they loved chocolate. They started to try fine chocolate, and all of a sudden, the whole idea of what chocolate is changes, right? So even those people that say they love the commercial one, maybe they do, but there might be other chocolate out there they love even more. You never know.
Yeah, and this is about knowledge again, that if you haven't, like in my tastings, I say you need to give the cacao, you need to give it time to evolve, and you need to give it time and to breathe, and then they say, well, I haven't actually eaten chocolate this way before, and so it's also about how you enjoy it that can make the difference between not knowing what chocolate is about, and then you say, well, actually I do like craft chocolate now.
Yeah, chocolate is a good tool to not only learn about fine foods, but even learn about our habits, how we eat, how we think about food. It's a wonderful vehicle for that as well. And no, it's very interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned licorice tasting. I've never in my life heard of a licorice tasting, but knowing that you're from Sweden, I'm like, I guess over there they have licorice tastings. Like,
of course, we grow licorice. Oh my God, I have to bring you to a licorice tasting. We can do it.
That sounds amazing.
Digital, yeah.
And that's the thing too, is growing up, my dad loved licorice. I didn't like it. So maybe there's a whole world of licorice in Sweden I never tried.
It is, but I think that he might like the sweet licorice, not the black
Probably.
salty
Probably.
licorice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when did you decide to start your business? If you want to clarify, I think you have a couple businesses, and when did you start putting all this together?
Yeah, I have 4 different companies now, and 2 of them is I only started last year in November.
Okay.
But I had this vision since I was like 14 that this is what I had this compass that this is what I want to do. And then I learned that in order to do everything that I want to do, I need to have different companies to be able to do it legally. Like I want to do liquor. I want to draw the flavors from the cacao shells and make spirits and liquor from that. Alcohol.
Okay.
I need a different company to do that. Yeah. So that's why I have four companies now.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. So I always knew that I'm going to be in the chocolate business, and then I started my first company 2008. And that was after I traveled to Ecuador to visit the work that Puric started, and I'm working with the same cacao farmers today.
Okay.
And well, I met a lot of different co-ops in Ecuador, and then I also went to Peru, to Tingo Maria. Do you know about Tingo Maria and Naranjal? Yeah. Naranjillo. Because some I can't name them now, but some bars, they write that they have cacao from Naranjillo co-op. But I went to that, like they are hidden in the Amazon, and there was like guards on the way with weapons, and they were having cocaine. Like it was really crazy to go there.
Right.
Yeah, super crazy. So I wouldn't do it again today.
Well, I think that's part of what the co-op was doing, was to push farmers away from the cocaine growing, right? And
yeah,
to get them to grow the cacao.
And I traveled there a bit too early, so there was a lot of cocaine and guards with heavy weapons on the way, and they stopped me. I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna die today, at least I died on my way to cocoa.
Right.
Yeah, but I went there, and there was a really interesting co-op because they had only female bosses.
Okay.
Every boss was a female, and there is there is a big what do you say, like a mountain, and the shape is of a woman, so they call it Sleeping Beauty, Mexa Osha in their language, and they made chocolate, Mexa Osha chocolate, and I bought 10,000 bars to support them.
Wow.
And that was my first chocolate business, the first thing I did in my chocolate company. So I took my pension, I took all the money I had in the bank, my pension and everything, and said, I'm just gonna buy all the bars that they make.
Wow.
10,000. Yeah. And that was sent to my small apartment in northern Sweden.
So you sold those bars to the Swedish market?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been a dancer, hip hop dancer. So I had a dance studio. My whole flat was just a dance studio. And then I filled that with my 10,000 bars, and I opened a chocolate store in my closet. And I wrote to the local newspaper that I have a chocolate store. Can you write about that? And they did.
That's cool.
So I started to sell that chocolate. Yeah.
And so what businesses do you have today that you have the spirit one?
Yeah, and then in that company I still do have. It's called the Chocolate Jenny. Like my street name, dance name was Lady Chocolate.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
So that's my company name, but in Swedish it's Chocolate Jenny. So and then 2012 I started I founded Vintage Plantation Chocolate together with Puric.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and then I started to actually make chocolate myself. Yeah.
And how was that? How was when you started actually making it yourself? Because you've been involved, you've seen a lot, you've learned a lot along the way. What were some of those early challenges when you actually had to make it?
Well, well, it still challenges machinery. They break all the time, and the first person that I employed, it's not a pastry chef. He's fixing cars, and I said, I need someone who can fix a car. So I still have the same challenges with the machinery. And then the first bars that we made, Pierrick, the French guy, he was living in the States at that time. He was also doing vintage plantations in the States, and I was doing vintage plantations in Sweden. So it's it has been a bit confusing for people because they see vintage plantations in Sweden and in the US. Yeah, but it's like the same company.
Okay.
Yeah, he came to me, and we were going to start and the production and make the first bars, and he forgot to bring the molds. So I had machinery running with chocolate, like a small grinder, but no molds.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I said to the local store, I said, I have chocolate, but I have no molds. Can I just like pour it into a big bag and then chop it into small pieces? And they said, yeah, that's fine.
Oh, wow.
So that's how we started. People they just bought a big lump of chocolate, putting in a paper bag.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's nice to have different ways of enjoying and selling chocolate, right? We always have chocolate. A lot of fine chocolate makers have them in bar form, really elegant packaging, but it's also nice to hear of other ways of consuming
you
it.
Can just start, you know.
Yeah.
Just start, and that's the message I want to send across to if there is someone who wants to start, just do it, like a Nike advertising. Just do it.
Yeah, a lot of makers are also very picky about, you know, the shine and the you know, making the bar look perfect. And to be honest, you know, I appreciate the craftsmanship involved and the skill involved to do that. But at the end of the day, especially for me, and I worked many years as a chocolatier, so I know the importance of that. But for me, at the end of the day, as long as it tastes amazing, as long as the quality of the product is good, I don't care what shape it is, what form it's in, you know? It's about promoting the quality bean and the quality chocolate making. It's the essence. Yeah,
exactly. And just to get started, chocolate should be fun. So people now, they remember that. My first chocolate, they always remember that piece in a paper bag.
That's pretty cool.
I didn't even have a label, but it didn't matter.
Can you tell us more about the work that you connecting with in Ecuador? So what's the significance of trying to preserve older original varieties of cacao in Ecuador, and some of the work that you've done there?
Yeah, well, one project is what Pierrick started in 1996, the co-op that I'm still cooperating with today. The other project about the old preserving old species was it was a project 10 years ago. I was traveling in Ecuador, and I met a guy called Juan. He had old trees in his farm. He's not in it's not a co-op. It's just him and his family and his neighbors growing cacao. And he told me that I think it was the government or Mars bars handling out fast growing I think it's called species, like really fast growing cacao seeds. They were handing it out and said, if you take your trees down and put this into the ground, we will buy it from you. It's going to grow much faster. Wow. And I said, don't do that. I can raise money in Sweden, and we can form a co-op, and we're going to preserve and keep what you have. So I started that project with him 10 years ago. And I raised money in Sweden, and the best way to raise money is to bake cakes. So I told everyone I know to just bake anything you like. And I had I rented a big place, and I said, come and have cake for free. You can eat as much as you like. I mean, that is, you don't even need to buy advertising. If people see you can eat as much cake as you want. Yeah. So I'm gonna start trying that. Yeah. I had so many people coming there, and they said, so it's free cake? I said, yeah, but if you want to help my project to save the world, you can pay a little bit. And of course, they all pay a lot for that cake. Yeah, so I raised money.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very creative.
But a few years ago, he was killed in the Amazon. He was killed. Yeah.
Wow.
So now it's on pause, that project. Yes.
But that's, it kind of goes, the whole story sort of shows the importance of the work that craft chocolate makers do. It's not just making really tasty chocolate. It's preserving these incredible cacaos. And, you know, a lot of these farmers, that's their life, that's their livelihood, and that it'll continue to be until the day that they go. And, you know, a lot of them don't necessarily want to grow the other types of cacao, but for them, at the end of the day, they need to make a living, right? So if the government's saying, here's some money, do this, sometimes they don't really have a choice, right? So it's very important for makers like what you did and what makers do that continue to buy cacao from these co-ops and from these farmers. It preserves that cacao, keeps it growing. And at the end of the day, it's very important work, right? Like more than just about food.
Yeah. And that has been my passion from the start. I want to support the farmers and work with the cacao and to help the trees and preserve the cacao, not just make a bar that people can enjoy.
Right.
And I'm also trying to get people to buy with their heart, not just to buy the cacao that wins every competition, and to buy cacao that, I mean, they can sell to anyone.
Buy the chocolate in the paper bag too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I have other projects where I'm trying to buy cacao from people who are not even involved. They don't even have a co-op. They have good cacao, but they haven't won any prizes, and they're not even connected to cacao buyers yet. I mean, to any middleman. So it's a bit more complicated.
Right.
But I rather give my money to them and try to help them, and then we start from there together, instead of buying from someone who's already, they have won so many prizes and they have all suppliers in the world. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do.
It's good. Like, it's nice that there's prizes, people get recognized, awards. That's really good too. But at the end of the day too, we have to make sure, like you said, to be a bit more thoughtful about these things. Is the cacao amazing? If it is, buy it, use it. You know, there's this mindset now, especially in the craft chocolate world, that, you know, specific origins, specific varieties are the ones to buy, the ones to sell, you know. And unfortunately, that it goes against helping farmers who are growing the really good cacao sometimes.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I went to, have you been to Biofach in Germany? It's like a huge, you meeting, it's for organic food. Okay. And it's all the cacao suppliers is there. So there was one supplier who he wants me to buy cacao from him. And then I met a cacao farmer from the Dominican Republic, a lady. She had cacao, and she thought that she could just sell cacao in like in a paper bag and just send it to Europe. And she says, no one is buying my cacao in Germany. And I said, they won't buy your cacao because they can't buy a paper bag of cacao. You need a supplier, you need to sell tons. You're one family producing cacao. You need a co-op, and you need to sell a container. But I'm going to try to buy from you, and to buy that like bag of 20 kilo. So I met with a cocoa supplier who wanted me to be his customer. And I said, I'll be your customer in the future if you go to that girl from Dominican Republic and you buy from her, then I'll buy from you. And then later I went to visit the girl from the Dominican Republic, and she said, you know what? I had a cocoa supplier here. He gave me his card, and he said he's going to buy my cocoa. He's going to add it in his shipment when he buy from other co-ops in the Dominican Republic. He's going to add my 20 kilo. And I said, yes, there you go.
Amazing. That's awesome.
So, I mean, you can actually change the cacao industry just by talking to people.
Right.
Yeah. making small changes. So I'm actually I have a friend in Dominican Republic. He's Swedish. He lives in Dominican Republic. He's coming to me tomorrow with samples from her.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So now she can sell to a supplier, because I just met him and I said, I'm going to be your customer on your Nicaraguan beans and your other beans, but I want you to buy from this family, so that, because they cannot ship, they are too small to ship. They need to be considered. They need someone to fetch their beans, so you can fetch their beans. And he said, but I'm already buying from them. You can buy my other beans from Dominican Republic. And I said, I know, but I want her beans, because no one else is buying from her. That's why I want to buy from her. I don't even know if the beans are good. I'm still going to buy them.
Okay.
Yeah, and take it from there. I mean, she will have the best beans. We're just going to develop it together.
Right. That's a good point too, because sometimes there's so many layers involved in determining whether cacao is quality, right? And sometimes the cacao that people receive from farmers maybe is not that good, but it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have potential. It could be something happening there with the way it's harvested, the way it's fermented, and it could turn out to be incredible, right? But you have to work with it.
Yeah, and you need to give them a chance, and they need to be able to have a chance to start from somewhere.
Yeah. And what do you think, since we're on that topic, I just wanted to ask quickly, how do you, because sometimes it's a fine line between, because some people get annoyed when they hear, oh, we're helping the farmers, and it kind of becomes more patronizing in a way. So, how should we as the craft chocolate world approach that without sounding like we're using them to sell a product or being patronizing? Does that make sense? It's hard for me to articulate it, but
it's really hard. That's before I was talking about more about I'm helping farmers, I'm direct trade, but those words have been used by the wrong companies now. So it's really hard. Now I think you need to talk about, okay, so how are you helping the farmers? And what do you mean direct trade? Are you actually buying from the farm directly to you, or do you have two middlemen direct trade? So, but it is challenging. Even I think the bean to bar term will be challenging in the future, since I think it was a Lindt bar saying bean to bar. Lindt were doing a bean to bar.
I've seen a few. Yeah, even some chocolatiers use that too, because they have cacao berry makes a special mix blend for them, and they call it bean to bar.
Yeah. But it shouldn't stop us from telling us what we do. We should talk about actually developing something together. I mean, this lady from Dominican Republic, I helped her to get to be able to sell her cacao, but she's helping me to have probably the best chocolate in the world soon. So I mean, we're helping each other. We need each other. We should talk about that. It's not only one person helping the other.
Exactly.
It's development together. Yeah.
Exactly. It is, both people are contributing to something, to a purpose, to an end goal. And I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, it's good. I think some makers feel hesitant to, talk too much about they're helping the farmer, like we're doing this, that, because it starts to sound a bit cliche and whatnot.
Yes.
But at the same time, people need to hear it, right? People need to know what's going on.
Yeah, but you need to, if you're using those words, you need to be able to back it. You need to be able to answer the questions. That's great. Happy to hear. But in what way are you helping the farmers? Is it by buying their cacao, or is it any other type of products?
Right. Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Nice to talk
and that's
about
transparency. That transparency that I hope that we're gonna find more on craft makers' websites. That if you say you're direct trade, or like I'm still angry about the sustainability. That's also a word, like inflation in sustainability. If you say that you're a sustainable brand, in what way are you sustainable? And that's the information that I can't find on their website. I'm really happy that they're organic and they're doing all this positive, but we need the transparency, and we should fight for that. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Talking more about Sweden, since you grew up in Sweden and you know the market there, you know the culture, how do Swedes view chocolate? What types do they like? And do they see chocolate as a decadent treat, or do a lot of people see chocolate more as, a nutritionist food if it's, well balanced in your diet? How do they see that?
Yeah, well, Sweden has a long history of eating and supporting organic. And we are very developed in the sustainable industry. We have systems for that. But of course, we also, so people like dark chocolate. They like the flavor of foods with less sugar. It doesn't mean that they know bean to bar and that the majority eat craft chocolate, but they eat dark chocolate. And that can be a mass-produced bar. But we have a history of liking dark chocolate and products with less sugar. And also we have a history of searching for labels, like the organic label and talking about sustainability. It's in our DNA to talk about that. When you go abroad, you see that we have a long history of that. Yeah, but then we also have Marabou, you know Marabou?
The cigarettes?
No, Marabou is it's a Swedish chocolate that are now banned because they're in Russia. So yeah. But Marabou is a huge brand in Sweden, sugar brand.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
sugar chocolate. Yeah. So of course we also have this candy. It's a candy bar.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So people, they eat both.
Okay.
But when I go to like the countries that actually grow cacao and I give them dark chocolate, they're like, "Ooh, this is where's the it needs to be dulce." where's
Especially in like Latin America, they love their sweets and their dulces.
Yeah. So in Sweden we have both.
Okay. And do Swedes understand and appreciate the realm of craft bean to bar chocolate? So you mentioned that a little bit, but do you feel like today you still have to do a lot of education? Is it very new for most Swedes, or do quite a few people now, maybe in the big cities, know what this is?
Yeah, they know about craft chocolate. And well, I would say most people would know that there is a difference between quality chocolates and candy chocolate. They might not say the words bean to bar. Right. They might not say craft chocolate, but they will definitely say, you mean quality chocolates or candy chocolates. They know that difference. Yeah. And most people in Sweden would say that, I prefer dark chocolates. Dark chocolate is super healthy because it's less sugar, and they also know that it's something good in cacao. It has some antioxidants, and they read in the newspaper that you fall in love if you eat a lot of cacao, and it makes you happy.
Right.
And so
aphrodisiac.
Yes. Yeah, they heard about that.
What spiel do you give people when you're trying to sell your chocolate, when you're talking about craft chocolate? What key points do you like to get across right off the bat?
Well, I will say that we're free from and functional food. What we do is called free from and functional food. It's a term used in Europe. Free from meaning that like we don't have soy, gluten, nuts, or dairy. So we are free from brand products. And it's a functional food, meaning that we have herbs with a function, or a berry with a lot of vitamins or antioxidants. So that's the one thing I would say, free from and functional food. That's the department that we are in. And also that this is a sustainably made Swedish craft chocolate with Nordic flavors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do Swedes appreciate that it's made there in Sweden? Is that what they like to see?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm the only bean to bar maker in northern Sweden. It's always good to be a pioneer, but it's also very challenging because since I I released the bars with molds and packaging in 2013, and then no one had heard about bean to bar.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of tastings.
So it's wonderful that you're the only one there, but then obviously you're the one who has to do all the legwork of educating.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's really good to have colleagues in the South who's also doing bean to bar.
Right.
There's no competition. We're helping each other, and even if we go to a fair together, they explain bean to bar, and then we both sell chocolate.
Do Swedes in the South, do they vacation in the North? Is that sort of how it works? Do they go there, or the people in the North usually always have to go south to kind of come together?
They go on vacation, definitely, to the North.
Okay.
And then, but to work for work, they go down south.
Oh, okay.
They think that there's no jobs up here, but there is, yeah.
So you get tourists in
a lot, yeah, especially in the mountains in the summer and the winter time. We have a lot of tourists. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, and also especially here because I live in the Arctic zone, so people come also, and also we have a bit further north we have a hotel made of ice, so the whole hotel is made of ice.
Amazing.
Yeah,
interesting. Be interesting if to do a chocolate tasting there.
Yeah, you should do. Well, they have my chocolates in there, and
nice.
And they have a whole bar, and the glasses and everything is made of ice.
Okay, I might have seen that online somewhere. The bean to bar sector appears to be growing with new makers all the time. So what do you believe is the key to maintaining this growth? If you want to see the chocolate makers now grow and you want to see new chocolate makers come in, what do you think needs to be a big part of that growth?
We need a platform to meet and exchange experiences and knowledge so that we can educate each other and develop together. We need a platform where the cacao suppliers can meet new chocolate makers, because it's quite hard to just travel to Ecuador and find a farmer, and then, I mean, how are you gonna transport the bean? You need a supplier. So there needs to be a platform where new suppliers can meet new craft makers, and also forums where you can learn about the craftsmanship, how to make chocolate, and share experiences, and then and also we need to educate the consumers, because if we have no consumers, there's no money in the business and we'll all die. So of course we need to all educate consumers, and also and to tell the difference between the craft chocolate industry and the mass-produced chocolate.
It seems like the chocolate industry is sort of on a cusp, like there's something new coming on the horizon. For you've been in it a long time, but at the same time it's still, for the world, it's very new, right? And
it is.
And so we need to do our best I need to do my best to remember that. I take for granted sometimes that the people who walk in know absolutely nothing at all, and I forget. So you always have to you have to always be on as far as educating people in a fun way that they like, that they enjoy, obviously.
And but I mean, every fair I go to, I have to educate people, because they look at the price and they said, I could have 4 chocolate bars in my local store for the same price as one bar from you, and then I have to tell them why. And that's a discussion that we all need to have, and we all need to educate. Why is my bar so much more expensive? I mean, it's
it's in a way, like I was saying to someone else, it's not expensive. That's kind of what it costs to make a good quality chocolate.
Yes, and I say that, well, you should ask the local store why that chocolate is so cheap, rather than asking me that why my chocolate is so-called expensive. How can that other chocolate be so cheap? Someone is paying that price.
Exactly. But it's also a good point about the platform of connecting makers and growers, because in a perfect world, that's sort of what you want is this farmer says, I have this incredible cacao. This maker says, yeah, I agree. Let's get into business together. Let's do it. Obviously, it doesn't work that way today. In some cases, it does, but very rarely. So it would be nice to foster an environment where these connections can happen more directly and more frequently.
Yeah, and we also need to connect farmers, because I met so many farmers who have great cacao, but they're not in a co-op yet. And it's a big step to organize a co-op. So we, the chocolate makers and the consumers, need to also support. How do you form a co-op? I was trying to apply for money from an organization, SIDA in Sweden, that how can I teach about forming a co-op in South America? So we need to include the farmers in this platform, and farmers who's not already selling to suppliers, who hasn't won any prizes yet, they have cacao in their backyard and they want to do something with that cacao.
Yeah, because there's some makers today that are finding, like Cantu, they go to Peru and they found this farmer and they love their cacao and they buy it. If you don't have people kind of out there trying to look for it and connect with these farmers, then one day it'll just disappear, right? Like you said.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's very crucial to do it now and not just wait because we might not have time. Why is it important for makers to be transparent about where the cacao comes from? That might sound redundant because we've been talking about this, but let's focus on that again. From a craftsman point of view and from a marketing point of view, if you're talking to a consumer, why is it important to know about this transparency?
Well, it's important to create an interest, because if consumers start to see that, oh, I can see where the cacao comes from, that it's from Nicaragua, yes, but it's from Vaslala from Matagalpa in Nicaragua. And then on the other bar, they see, oh, this is also Nicaragua, but it's from another place, it's from Ciuna in Nicaragua. It creates an interest. So we need to put the origins on the bar, and it also gives credit to the farmers and to the co-ops.
Yeah.
So we need to start putting that information on the bar.
Right, because if you think about wine, for instance, wine that's made in France or whatever, a lot of times, oh, this is a family-run winery. We know the people involved. We know everything about the grapes. It's you go to the wine tasting and you learn everything about the whole thing. But in chocolate, there's all this separation, So like you said, it's important to know who's behind it, the maker, the growers, the co-op, all that sort of stuff, because it really helps the consumer feel more attached and appreciate it more, right?
Yes, and it creates that interest to maybe that I'm going to look at the other bar, see if I can find some more information. And then suddenly they start to buy those bars that have all that information on them.
Yeah, because that's what marketing is. It's all about tugging on people's hearts, but it can be done honestly and genuinely for good reason, or it can be done not so honestly sometimes, right? But with the origin thing, that works too, because in a place like Canada, where there's people from all over the world living here, and they come in, they see, oh, like that bar's from my country, or it's from my region in my country, they get really excited,
Yeah.
And they want to buy it and they want to try it. So having all that sort of information really, really helps connect with the consumer. Yeah. What do you think, this is a big question, but what more can be done to help sustain fine cacao growing around the world? What can makers do? What consumers do? Again, we talked about that, but what would you say?
Well, it's about, of course, again, having a platform where we can meet, and also like the same to inform the consumers. And also, like, I'm going to connect with the other discussion, the name on a specific region, like the mass-produced chocolate. That's an advantage that we have. The mass-produced chocolate, they just buy blends. They don't even know where the cacao comes from. So that's an advantage that we should use, that we can actually name the co-op, we can name the farmer. The big mass-produced chocolate industry, they cannot they don't even know. And that's also how the consumer can tell the difference on the packaging, that can this brand even name the co-op on the packaging?
And to get consumers to find value in that, because let's say you buy some wine and it doesn't say where it's made, where the grapes come from. A lot of people are going to say, I'm not going to spend $80 on this bottle. Where is it coming from, right? But we don't think like that about chocolate. That's so...
Yeah, we need to learn that from the wine industry. And that's how we create more bean-to-bar makers in the world, and also help more farmers, that we need to learn from the wine industry.
Do you think that, you know, because the way we're talking, we're very passionate, we're kind of geeky about chocolate, we get technical. Do you think this kind of stuff also maybe turns off the public sometimes? Maybe it seems a bit too pretentious. What do you think about that?
If you look at the wine industry, it didn't. People who they don't know much about wine, but they still read on the bottle. So we should be able to copy that. And also in the coffee industry, Sweden is, I think, where we drink the most coffee in the world, at least almost drink. So, and here people are crazy about reading about the coffee, and it should be specialty coffee. So if we can copy the coffee industry and the wine industry, we can definitely create that interest without putting them off, and that it becomes too much.
Right. That's a very good point. Yeah, exactly. And I think people who don't know too much about wine or coffee, they sort of see it a bit more sophisticated and revered when they see all that information sometimes as well, right? It kind of draws them, oh, like, you know, I want to sort of understand this too.
Yeah. But we should also spread the message that you can't do anything wrong when you enjoy chocolate, and it's not that serious, and it should be fun. And, you know, in my tastings, I explain to them that I give you advice how to enjoy the chocolate, but eat where you like, eat any, you know,
I remember,
this should be fun.
You know, because they always say, don't chew your chocolate. And I tell people, you could chew a little bit. And one person said, oh, thank you, because I like to chew my food. I really like chewing, and now I know I can chew. It's like, of course, you can enjoy it any way you like, right? Here are some tools to help you enjoy it the best. But, you know, go ahead and enjoy the food the way you like to enjoy it, right?
Yeah. I think we need to relax a bit more in the chocolate industry now. People they like, oh, but I can't sense all that, like the 50 flavors of that cacao. Like, okay, but that doesn't matter. Do you like it or do you don't like it? That's the only question you need to answer. You don't have to name all the flavors that you can sense from the cacao.
Yeah, I like to tell people too, it's sort of like going to an art gallery, and you and your friends are looking at the same painting, but you're getting different ideas, emotions about it, you know, because everyone has, and it's the same with flavor. You guys are eating the same chocolate, but what are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What are you enjoying about it? Right. That's what matters. That's what matters.
Yeah.
What are some future goals that you have for your chocolate making business and just all the work that you're doing? What's on your mind right now that you want to kind of see in the future, in the near future?
Well, I want to be able to make chocolate from grandiflorum and from bicolor. Yeah.
So what is that for people that don't know? What are those?
Yeah. Right now you have Theobroma, and then you have Theobroma cacao. That's one, but you have 22 different species.
Right.
I thought I'll let you explain because your English is better than mine.
I don't think so. I think it's equal.
Thank you. Yeah, but out of those 22 species, I hope that we can use not only Theobroma cacao, but also using the bicolor and grandiflorum. The problem is fermentation, that we need to be able to ferment it in a way that creates good taste. And that's what I want to get into. And in order to do that, I'm trying to connect farmers with scientists, because we need science in this. Otherwise, we can just do trial and error forever.
Right.
but we need science in this.
But why do you want to make chocolate from those? What's so special that?
Because I'm always interested in innovations and finding a new way to do chocolate. And also, I think that it's important for, what's that word? Not monoculture, to have like biodiversity. Yes, yes. I think it's good for the world if we can use more species, because right now we're only using the Theobroma cacao, and that's meaning that that's what we are growing on the planet. We need to grow more species.
Yeah, and even with those other species, the bicolor and whatnot, there's many sub varieties of those as well, right? That might disappear if nobody needs to use them for any purpose. So that's a good point.
Yes, and we're gonna grow the cacao that we can make chocolate from, because people eat the chocolate. So that's why we need to be able to make chocolate from them. Otherwise, we're not going to grow them.
Yeah, it's sort of like there's a guy in BC here who makes some chocolate, but he also specializes in different heirloom varieties of corn to make different kinds of tortilla and flour. And, you know, kind of same ideas. Like if we don't have people using these heirlooms, eventually they might disappear, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Same with the Theobroma. Yeah, good point.
Exactly.
And sorry, you're mentioning as well about the sustainability in your future goals. So what sort of work?
Yeah, what I'm trying to create in the future is to create even more a circular production, that we have in a way that we have no waste. I'm doing that already, but I want to develop it even more. So one project I'm doing right now is that I'm working with a government-funded organization called RISE, Research Institutes of Sweden, and they are using my shells and trying to extract the antioxidants, and they're also trying to extract the fat from the cacao shell. Yeah, using.
Because I think shells absorb 5 to 10% of the fat, right? That's a lot of fat.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're using supercritical carbon dioxide. It's a super advanced method to extract fat, and also to extract the nutrients and the antioxidants. So I'm doing that now because we are wasting so much from the cacao bean right now when we're not doing anything with the shell. We are using it in gardens, which is great, but not enough.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one project I'm doing to
That's a good point, because it adds value. You know, so let's say, for instance, you're a chocolate maker. It's a difficult industry to make money as a craft chocolate maker. But if you have all of a sudden a byproduct where you can make more money from, that helps everyone. It helps the maker continue to thrive. It helps the growers who are growing that cacao to keep growing it because it's being used, right? So that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's my goal, to develop that, and then I can pay money for shells from everybody else, so that they can earn some money for the shell instead of just. I mean, I know now my colleagues that produce bean to bar here, they just give the shells away, which is, I mean, it's so much nutrients in that shell.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because we know with the history of chocolate, when they were making cocoa powder, they were throwing away the cocoa butter, right? They didn't know what to do with it. Now it's more expensive than the cocoa beans. So maybe you're onto something, you know, maybe this is that next phase.
Yes, I think so. and I'm also trying to do packaging from the cacao shell. Yeah, I'm extracting one, I think it's called lignin in English. It's lignin, the cacao shell contains it. And it's a project together with the university here up north. So we're trying to create a material that looks like plastic. It's see-through, but it's actually paper. So it's gonna dissolve and recycle like paper, and it's made from cacao shell and also carrot shell and potato starch. Yeah, and I found that there is some companies doing packaging paper from cacao shell, but it's only about 5 or 7% cacao shell. So it's actually basically just normal paper, and they add 5% cacao. Yeah.
Otherwise,
and that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to do something else.
Yeah.
So that's the
amazing.
other project I'm doing with the shell. Yeah.
Do you still have time to dance? Because you have like a million things that you.
Yeah.
That
I dance in order to have energy, and then I also, of course, eat such a lot of chocolate. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But we also make alcohol from the cacao shell. So we make a crème de cacao from the cacao shell. And that's the other factory that I started last year, to really create a circular system to really use the shell.
Do you mind if I ask you quickly, because some people bring up issues about health concerns with the shells. So how do you address that if people are concerned? Well, the shell's a waste product because it might have heavy metals and salmonella. How do you address that?
Yeah. If you make papers, it's fine. And if you extract the antioxidants, it's fine. If you put the shells in alcohol, everything is going to die. So, and then we distill. So we just extract some of the flavors from the shell. So, but if you're going to make tea, just boil hot water, then you can have a health issue with the shells. So it depends on what you do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And some shells obviously get tested. Some people test their shells before they use them as well. So
yeah, we test the shells that we use, but it's also a matter of, and that's also where we have an advantage in the craft chocolate industry, that we can name the farmer, and we know exactly how they treated the beans. Mass-produced chocolate don't have that advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good points.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It was really fun to talk to you. How do people connect with you if they're interested in your work and your chocolate? What's the best way?
Well, they can Google, just go into our website or Instagram, nordic.chocolate.
Well, thank you, Jenny. It was really, really nice to talk to you.
It was so fun to talk to you, someone else who's crazy about chocolate and cacao.
You have so much energy. I like it. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I wish you all the best with everything that you're doing, and I hope to connect with you again in the future.
I hope so too.
Okay. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Download the free Bean to Bar app to connect with incredible chocolate makers from around the world. Also be sure to visit beantobarworld.com, your portal for all things fine chocolate, virtual tastings, free learning resources, research, and much more. Subscribe to the newsletter to stay in touch, and donate to the free app and free resources here. Contact me for any chocolate-related questions you may have.